So I'm going to do a quick screen share here for just to first be sure that it's working, and then just kind of highlight what we're doing for the day. So thumbs up if you can see the screen. It should say proposal application. Thank you very much. And again, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. That will be helpful for all of us getting to know who's in the room and to be with us today. So appreciate that. With that, again, our plan, we'll kind of jump in here and get people admitted in as I can, doing a little bit of double duty. Our plan today really is to, first of all, review through the project plans. And then once we've done that, we'll do that in some group work. Once we've done that, then we're going to actually come back and talk about all the different components of the application process and how what we've been working on fits into that process. We'll look at some of the key pieces, the timeline, the budget. We'll actually look at some budget forms and templates, and I'll provide you some resources. And once we get into the breakout rooms here in just a couple of minutes and get you started there, then I will, my technology is always a little interesting here, but I will get the handout for today, hopefully posted in the chat. I'll do my best to do that. If not, we may have to do it like we did last time and send it out right afterwards. But either way, you'll have all the resources and the slides with you, so you don't have to feel like you're in a scramble to take really fast notes or anything. So you'll get all this information. So that is our plan. Once we've done that, we'll take a look at your candid profiles, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is and what that means and why that's important. And then, as I shared, our final time today, starting between 3:45 and 4, my colleagues on the grant management team here at the Community Foundation will be joining us, and we'll be talking a little bit about our internal process, kind of how it works here at the Community Foundation, what kinds of things we're looking for, what it, and how you can apply for the grants here if that's something that you're considering. But again, the process that we're learning would apply in multiple applications, not just here at the Community Foundation. So that's our plan for today. We should wrap up right around 4:30, perhaps a little earlier. I try my very best not to go over, although I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes afterwards to answer any questions that you have, and my colleagues will probably be willing to do the same thing. So with that, let's do just a quick review of what we focused in on and kind of what your homework was for the last session together. And we talked specifically about the story arc as well as the logic model. And as a reminder, you've got the story arc here. And again, this slide will be in your handout, but the whole idea is to really take what our brains are used to in understanding stories and to build that for your nonprofit project, proposal, your nonprofit in general. You can use this lots of different ways. But what you were asked to do is to really start thinking about this for whatever project or program you were thinking about getting funding for, to start to build out what that story looks like. And then the other thing you were asked to do was to really think about this whole idea of a logic model. And I think I've shared with you before, I teach this in a lot of different ways, and I've actually got a fundraising from foundations class going on right now as well with some international students. And they were working through this logic model process and getting really kind of hung up between the outputs and the outcomes, which is not uncommon. And something that I know as we talked through last time, some of you shared was still, a little bit of a point of concern or confusion. And really the takeaway from that, you'll see very formalized versions of this model, or you'll see, and sometimes, as I said, you'll see even really simple versions of this model where people are just saying, what have you got that's going into the project, and what are you going to do with it, and so on. They'll ask those pretty simple questions. But the thing to remember about the difference between outputs and outcomes are that outputs are typically numbers. All right, they're numbers driven. They're going to be what happens specifically, how many people attended your workshop, how many people attended your event, how many sponsors you got for the event, how much money you raised at the event. They're going to be specific numbers, right? You know, how many people served, how many meals served, how many creatures spayed and neutered, whatever it may be. Those are your outputs. And then the outcomes are the behavior changes. What is causing people to act differently as a result? So we may spay and neuter, 30 pets. What does that mean? Or maybe we're spaying and neutering community animals, which are not necessarily individual people's pets, but animals that live in the community. I know in my own community, we have a lot of community cats that keep the mice and the bugs at bay. And so, but there is a movement to get a lot of them spayed and neutered so that they're not reproducing at crazy levels. So the outputs on that are maybe how many of those procedures are done and animals are returned to the community, but the outcomes from that, are fewer stray animals in the area, a stronger awareness of those in the neighborhood who are part of this program to understand why this is important, and what we can do to be of assistance and what we shouldn't be doing as we're, interacting with these animals and so on, with a long-term change. And that's your impact of, of a healthy community with the appropriate number of, say, community cats in our case in the area that will help take care of some of the other nuisances, but not, not at an unhealthy or unsafe level for the animals or for the people who live in the area. That's just an example of how we think about this. So your outputs are your initial numbers, your outcomes are the behavior changes, and your impact is the long-term overall change. That impact sometimes is visionary, and it sometimes is even something you don't know exactly how you're going to measure in that long term, but that you're still anticipating how you would know this work had been successful. So that's kind of how we look at it in that sense. So I hope that's helpful. What I'd love to do now is to put us into breakout rooms so that those of you that have done some work here can get some feedback from others in the space. And those who haven't, oh, Jolanda, you've got some drawing going on the screen. That's interesting and cool. I don't know how that works, but that's kind of fun. But anyway, I'm actually gonna stop the share now and give us a chance to, as I said, to work in some small groups. I'd love to hear if there were any groups that that if you heard something interesting or gave you some things to think about, or you got some good feedback in your group. So feel free to just pop off mute if you can and let us know, a little bit about maybe what you heard or what you chatted about in your group. Any willing volunteers?
I can share a little something with you that I thought was really good in our group is
Fantastic. Thanks, Tina.
we made the observation, or it wasn't me, but if you have a cause and you know it's good and you know you're filling out the paperwork and everything is perfect, and then nobody's picking you. And I think the conclusion we came to was there might be multiple applicants for the same thing you're doing, the same cause.
That could be. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good observation. And that goes back a little bit to what we talked about in a previous session about understanding and being able to share sort of the space that you work in, knowing who else is doing work in that space, so that you can perhaps make some adjustments to the application to help a funder understand, there may be 6 different theaters, and I'm making the number up. I don't remember how many we've got, but I know we have several. But there may be, say, 6 different theaters doing, kids performances, but here's where we fit in that. So sometimes it's helping the funder know that, know that there's lots of different people who are lots of different organizations who are, say, working in aspects of homelessness, right? We know we've got a ton of organizations that do work in that space, for example. And what we do is maybe our organization is out specifically on the street, providing blankets or providing health kits, whatever it may be. So you want to help the organization or the funder learn your specific aspect of the work that you're doing. Or maybe you're doing the same sort of work as other organizations, but you're doing it in a different space. You know, you're focused in on a specific zip code or a specific neighborhood. Or maybe all of them are doing specific neighborhoods and you're helping fund the, you know, work in the entire community. So it's sometimes, you know, it's a great example, Tina, that sometimes, you know, there are different people doing the work in the space. The other thing I'll share on that, and then I'll certainly open this up to additional thoughts and questions, is that sometimes, as I said before, you can reach out to the funder and say, thank you for, you know, for letting us apply. You know, I know we didn't get it. Could you provide any feedback as to what reasons or what we might be able to do better to make our application more more fundable, right? And sometimes a funder will provide that for you. Not always. Some organizations will tell you up front they don't provide additional feedback. It's not because they're mean and they want you to keep guessing, even though I know I have kind of felt that way on occasion, that it's, you know, that it's when I've been applying for grants, I'm like, well, somebody just give me a reason. But most of the time it's because they get so many applications, and like the rest of us, they are probably understaffed for the number of, you know, applications they're getting in, that they may just simply not have the capacity to do that. But I will tell you that we will provide feedback when we can. It won't always be immediate. So if you get a decline from the community foundation, we may not be able to tell you that same day what could improve the application, but we always put out information where you can come together or where you can make a separate appointment to learn a little more about the application and how you might be able to improve it. So know that that is something that we will do, and is something that many funders will do. It just takes, sometimes it takes a little time. So great observation. Yeah. Other thoughts? Again, feel free to just pop off mute if you've got a question, or if you're more comfortable in the chat, that's fine too. Either observations from your group or thoughts or questions that sort of came up in those processes. I am not hearing or seeing any, so I do hope that at least coming together in those small groups gives you a chance to meet some other folks doing the work, to see kind of where people are in that process, to understand that, you know, it's okay if you haven't gotten too far yet, but knowing a little bit more about what those parts of building that application look like, so that you can start to put that into play. So with that, what I'm going to go ahead and do is dive back into a little bit of content. So I love cameras on, but if you prefer at this moment, if you want to give your eyes a break, that's okay too. My big double dog dare, as you all know, is even if you turn your camera off, that doesn't mean turn your email on. So if you can avoid that, I encourage it. I know sometimes, you know, it has to be done, but I encourage you to give yourself a little bit of time here to think and learn. But if you do need to turn the camera off, that's okay. Let me see if I can get my screen to behave itself as I like it to. And thumbs up if you can see something that says confirm the process. Thank you. I appreciate that. And what we're really going to do now is just dive in a little bit to, as I continue to get my screen going here, dive in a little bit to the other components of an application. We talked a little bit about your project, you know, overall, your story, your logic model that helps you kind of build out what that project is going to look like. The other pieces and parts that we need to continue to grow and develop over time include the timeline, include your connection to any other partners or collaborations that you may be looking at. Include your budget, include your evaluation, including specific indicators, and we'll talk about what those are and what that means specifically around our community foundation work, as well as sustainability. So we're going to walk through some content here to give you the rest of those planning tools And then we'll look at, after we do a little work in Candid, then we'll look at how that all fits together. And as I said, meet the team that that does a lot of that work for us here at the Community Foundation. So with that, let's start out with the idea of what it is that we're looking for when we talk about a timeline. Now, what you have on the screen is just one example. A timeline format can be a lot of different things, but basically what we're looking for is laying out what those activities are that you've identified in your logic model and how that's going to fit into the time frame of the project. Now, this example kind of covers it a couple of different ways. You can see this if you're doing, say, a 4-year project. This shows a little bit about how that lays out over the year. But you can use the same idea for a month to month or a quarter to quarter. And basically what that is showing is taking sort of the key activities that are going to happen and plotting out when they're going to happen. Now, for those of you in small organizations, this is a fabulous way to keep track of what you said you were going to do in a visual way. And yes, Gail, to your question, I will send these slides out right after the session. I was trying to get those in the chat, and for some reason it's not letting me do that. So you will have all this information immediately following the session. But yeah, what this is showing is just a way, and again, it doesn't even have to be in this sort of detailed format as far as graphic. Although, if you've got the capacity to do something like that, sometimes that's a great additional upload that you can share with a funder. But really, even just spelling out in Q1 after the grant has been awarded, here's the things that we're going to do. In Q2, here are the things that we're going to do, or however long it lays out, right? If you've got a project where the grant will only fund a portion of that, it's still a really good idea to build this whole timeline out, even if you don't end up sharing the whole thing. Again, it's a great way to have a visual or a planned timeline so that because we all know this happens, somebody on the board or somebody else in the organization says, oh, we've got this other project we want to do, and it's going to be in Q1 of this year. And if you can look at that timeline and think, oh, if we're going to do that in Q1 with everything else that we've got planned, that's maybe not going to work so well, right? Or I'm going to have to be sure that, I can rearrange some things so that we can fit this in. It just gives you that ability to track. If you're in a larger organization, it's a great tool to sort of share amongst teams so that people understand what's happening in the different departments, right? This is something that we've encouraged at the Community Foundation, that we've encouraged our marketing team to do with us, because a lot of times, we as we're working on projects, or, I'll pick on myself and say, when I'm looking to promote programs and I want to get some blast emails out to all of you, that's all done through our marketing department. And so the simple thing for me is to say, oh, hey, my friend Ashley that does this, here, let me send you an email. Can you please send this out? Well, if Ashley had absolutely nothing to do but wait for me to send emails, it'd be great. But Ashley has a whole lot of things that she does at the Community Foundation. And so when we know what's going on, it helps her and me set expectations to say, oh, she probably isn't going to be able to get that email out today because she's working on 12 other things, right? So it's a great tool to help planning and also expectations. Even working with board members, for example, when somebody comes and says, oh, you know what I think we should do? We all get that, you get tense as soon as you hear that sentence. And somebody says something like, oh, we should have a golf outing. Like, we could do that next month, right? Sure. Maybe not. And here's why, here's all the different things that we have going on. So we'd have to fit something like that in and have the capacity to do it or whatever. I tease about a golf outing because that in the nonprofit I ran back in Indiana, that was something I had 2 board members that were just convinced that we needed to do. Mind you, it was an organization with an initial budget of about $100,000. We grew that a little bit over time, and a staff of me and them as board members. So, it just wasn't something that was very realistic. If you've ever been involved in a golf outing or any sort of a walk or any of those kinds of activities, how much work they take. So a timeline is an opportunity to not only plan out what's expected during that project, but also to help manage expectations of your time and others' times that are going to be working on that project as part of the process. So again, whether or not the application asks you to upload or to build out a timeline, doing so will really help you feel good about how the project's going to work. And you'll be able to speak from it, whether it's just saying, I know at the Community Foundation, I think we have a narrative piece that asks a little bit about the timeline where you just say, you know, these are the things that are going to happen. But you could also have an opportunity to do an upload of a document. And so you could show us this as laid out, you know, if you wanted to. Again, I've seen both ways in other applications. Some will have a very specific timeline you fill out. Some will just say, give us, you know, the layout or the project timeline. But building that before you have to fill out the application makes it much easier and more efficient. And you don't have to have that scramble of, oh my goodness, what month did I say I was going to do that? And trying to remember your password to get back into the grant portal to see what you said you were going to do and try to figure out how to fit that into your expectations, right? So that's another key piece of project planning that will actually then start fitting into your application. Before we continue on, any questions? Again, feel free as we're going along to pop questions in the chat, and I'll try to pause momentarily if there are any specific questions that you've got. Just pop off mute and or raise a hand. Checking through the screen to see if anybody's got any. Not seeing any. Oh, I do have one. Awesome. Thanks. It says Arts Accelerator. What's your question?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say I recently applied to a grant and I wanted to ask what your recommendation was, uh, because they basically were like not they they were saying things that weren't related to the grant at all. They were so and I don't know if and the way we took it was like, okay, I guess we weren't clear enough in what we were explaining as these 30 events to be. So that was very surprising to us, and I didn't really know how to handle it. I don't want to offend somebody, but like really so I just addressed what they said, and I just said this is not how it works, this is how it works. And then I just went on from there. But at that point it's frustrating because now they're scoring it based on something that you know. So, and this
Wasn't
has
part of your
happened to
plan. Yeah.
us before, and it's just like it's literally 3 events spelled out, and I don't even know where they got this other idea from. But anyway. So how would you best handle it when something like that comes up?
Well, and that's an interesting question. I'm happy to stay a couple minutes after the session and we can talk very specifically, but broadly, and you can tell me a little bit more about like what those questions were and what they were bringing up, and maybe we can start to dive into that specifically. But broadly, it sort of leads me a couple of directions. One is that it may be that you want to take a real deep look at the other projects that organizations have funded. And we've talked a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit more of that as a tool. As you're looking at organizations, it's really good to see who they funded and what they funded. Because if you're proposing something very different than what they funded,
Yeah,
you know, you may,
that's what it is.
yeah, you may be setting yourself up for some of those questions, and it may be just a lack of understanding. It may be a lack of fit on your part or on their part. It just may not be a good match. The other thing that would lead me to is maybe circling back to the way that you're filling out the application. This is why I'm happy to talk with you more one-on-one, just so we can go into a little of that. But a lot of times I can say this and one of my colleagues is on with it here, so I know she's smiling even as she's listening, but I can say this pretty
I am.
clearly. Yeah. Angelica's already listening in. But a lot of times, or not a lot of times, but sometimes it's just that the application is not written as clearly because the person who's writing it knows in their head exactly what this should look like, but that doesn't always come across, right? I don't have any idea if either of those were the situation. I'm happy to talk with you afterwards, or we can set another time if that's helpful. But that would be the first couple of things that come to my mind, is really maybe building out the story and worrying less about making what you're saying sound good and perfect, and worrying more about being very clear what kind of funding you're looking for, so that if it's not a good fit, you're not wasting your time, they're not wasting their time, and it's you don't have this weird discomfort of what's happening, why is nobody getting this. So again, let's talk a little bit more offline so that I can get a little deeper understanding and see if I can help. But if you are getting a similar, and really this can apply a lot of different ways, if you're getting a similar response, even Tina's question earlier, then it could be one of those directions. Either you're not being as clear as you think you are, and we'll talk about a strategy to help with that, or maybe you haven't found the right fit for the organization that looking at what you want to do, and it hasn't been maybe as clear as you think. So we'll talk a little more about that, and some of those strategies. The quickest, easiest strategy to check your clarity is to invite someone else to read your application who knows a little bit about your work, but not a lot about your work, and see if it can come clear to them, right? Which means, again, even in building your sort of pre-award timeline, you've got to build in enough time to give somebody a chance to do that. But there are, gosh, what we say, 15,000 nonprofits registered in Broward County. So there are surely a few other folks that do this work, and you've met some of them even here in this class, that might be able to give you 10 or 15 minutes, review a couple of sections to be sure that what you're saying in your mind is what is coming out on paper, right? Or in writing. So that can be a good strategy as well. So
Yeah, it was
again, let's stay
interesting.
after and talk a little more. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Oh no, no, thank you for that. And I think it's exactly what you said. I think it's just maybe in my mind it was super clear, but maybe to somebody without any understanding of like, what we do in the arts and film, it might not understand it as
Yeah.
clearly. So I think there was a lot of that because we had two people that presented the grant on our behalf. And the first person was like, "We love this, we should definitely fund this project. This is great." And then the other one was like, "I didn't understand this and that."
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, this is good
Okay,
feedback.
wait a minute. Yeah.
Put it
And
into
that's
the next grant.
that is what you have to take it as.
Yeah.
It's as much as you want to, do all the things, strangle, whoever, or pull all your hair out, or all those things. We've all been in those spaces. But but when you can use that as feedback, because clearly there was a miss somewhere. If you can revisit, the previous funder, and say, I'd love some tips on how to make this clearer, so that it makes sense, or to understand what it is that you were looking for us to add that we've never thought about, because it may, who knows, maybe it's a great idea, maybe it isn't going to work at all, and why, and you can sort of clear some of that up. But if you can get an opportunity like that, that's awesome. If not, again, yeah, take that in as a learning experience, and maybe as if you reached out to have one of your colleagues here to review something in the next time you apply, you could say, here's what we kept hearing. So as you're reading this, see if this makes sense, right? You can kind of give them some of that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great questions. All right, let me run us on through. So we've talked a little bit about timeline, and again, even to some of these questions, having a lot of this work done ahead of time helps you in your mind spell it out more clearly, and then be able to translate that into the application more clearly. That's why it's so important to do these pieces as much as you can beforehand, so that when the application comes out, really it's more of a matter of fitting in what you know and what you've got planned into the format that they're looking for versus trying to actually create or invent some of the answers as you go. So in addition to the timeline, we've talked a little bit previously about budgets, right? And most applications are going to ask you for two different budgets. We talked a little bit about this last time, and I've got in the handout that will come to you, but here on the screen, a couple of resources that have great tips and suggestions and even templates on building your budget. So again, this will be in the handout that comes to you. But the first budget that you need to kind of think about is your own organizational budget. And the first thing I'll say about that is that if you do not have an annual budget for your organization that looks something along the lines of what you see here on the screen, that has your current plan on revenue, what money's coming in and what money's going out, and a place to sort of track through the year. You might have a number at the beginning there. So maybe you're anticipating applying for $10,000 in grants. So far, you've been awarded $2,000. And then next year, or no, I'm sorry, this one lists previous year. So then you would look at what you had last year. Maybe last year you only anticipated getting 5,000 and you ended up getting 7. It's a way to track what your plans are and kind of how they're coming to life, right? And many organizations, many funders want to see that, because we want to know that you've gone through that process, that you've got a plan in place, and that if we are, going to grant you, say, that $5,000 grant, or, whatever number is appropriate there, that we see how you can manage it and have some history on how that would work. All right. So your organizational budget is one of the things that is very often asked for in an application. We ask for it. We love it. Here's a little insider hint. We love it when it's in a format like this, because it does exactly what I just said. It shows us that you have a plan, that you as an organization have thought through what income could come in through the year and what expenses you're going to have. Now, I almost always have at least one organization or somebody ask me, okay, but we don't do it that way, right? They'll say, we wait, and when money comes in, we know what the needs are and we spend it on those needs. All right. I understand that. If that's the way that you want to operate as a nonprofit, you probably are not going to be a good candidate for foundation funding, because foundations want to see your plan. They want to know that there is a solid operating strategy, that you are running the organization along the lines of a business, because a nonprofit is a business. It is just, the difference is we don't put profits back into the shareholders. We put profits back into the organization, to the mission, right? But otherwise, it is a business. And so you need to be able to show to funders, to major donors, to corporate partners, that you are running the organization that way, right? So again, two really strong examples. That nonprofit toolkit that's from the Wallace Foundation it has videos, it has all kinds of great resources. So if you're new in the budget space, it's a great spot to start. It's a good resource to check into. If you like this little template, this is a download that I pulled from that very first link. And like I said, this is an example. This is a template that we like a lot, because it tells us everything we need to know about this year, about last year. Sometimes we'll get applications where organizations have had a big change one year to the next. Maybe last year your budget was 25,000, and then there was a whole lot of need, and you've got more programs happening, and some more volunteers that are going to be doing some fundraising, and you're going to be applying for grants. So your budget number changes a lot. By showing us how that has worked in a template like this, that helps us understand that you can manage that. And that's not just a shot in the dark, right? You didn't just say, well, this year we're just going to imagine that we can do these things, right? That there is a plan for what that's going to look like. Okay. So that's your organizational budget. And that's one of the two types of budgets that are often asked for on applications. The second one is your program budget. And this, as we talked about last time, is the where you tell us exactly how you're going to spend the money that you're asking for, right? You've got it, you've given us the whole big year picture. Now show us what it's going to look like to spend this money. So if you're asking for $5,000, where's that $5,000 going to go? And this format is exactly, at least at this moment in time, what you will see in the Community Foundation's application for a program budget. I've taken this, I mean, even the colors. I've taken this, all I did was split it into two instead of being one long column so that you could see it. But this is the format that we use. You'll be able to download it on the grant portal, and you'll be able to fill this in with whatever plans you have to spend money that you might be applying to the Community Foundation of Broward for. So if you've got, I mean, if your whole grant is to bring in a consultant to help you with some specific work, then you might put that, we'll just pretend it's $5,000. You might put that whole $5,000 in that consultant line item 3. And the way you would fill that out is you would, in that long line, or in the first column there, you could put, you know, that you're going to use a consultant. And the second one, you can give us some description. We call that our budget narrative. That's where it's exactly what it sounds like. That's where you explain to us what you're going to do with that money if it's not obvious, right? So maybe your consultant is going to come in and for 20 hours, they're going to provide you, I don't know, I'm making stuff up here. They're going to provide you fundraising advice as you build your fundraising plan to raise, you know, a certain amount of money from foundations and from individual donors and from companies, right? So you've got to bring them in to do that work. So you could just explain that briefly. Remember, we don't need lots and lots of verbose language. We don't need fluff. Give us no fluffy stuff. Just tell us exactly what that money's going to do. And then you would put in there under the CFB expense column, under amount, you would say what of that grant is going towards that. So if it's all $5,000, you would put $5,000. If it's $3,000 because you're going to spend $2,000 on something else, you would put that in there. And then that column next to it says other funding sources, right? So if you have other funds that are also going to pay for that part of that project, you would enter those in there as well. So let's pretend that you've also received a grant from Children's Services Council. The CSC has granted you some funding. They're going to put in, and you put in your application a little bit of money for your consultant. You put in our application a little money for your consultant. So you would put both of those in there. You'd put ours on the CFB side. You'd put other, the CSC funding on that other funding sources side. And then again, in that narrative line, you could tell us that too. All right. So this is the way that most organizations most foundations that are looking for a program budget, this is the type of format you're going to see, right? Yeah, they vary a little, but this is basically what you want to do. So again, before you start filling out the application, you want to have a pretty solid idea of what this looks like, right? Because if you are applying for, say, a part-time position to help in your program, we would want to know in that first section what the salary was and what funding from the Community Foundation you would be using for that. But if you also want to use grant funds for your payroll taxes and your fringe benefits and that kind of thing, you would want to have that figured up. And there may be other people in your organization that you have to work with to get those numbers if those aren't the numbers that you work with on a daily basis in order to get that calculated. You don't want to save that kind of stuff for the last minute when you're filling out the application, right? So have that stuff all figured out and exactly what you want it to look like. And then when you go to fill out the application, again, in the case of the Community Foundation, it's going to look really, really close to this. In another application, it may look a little different, but it's going to be the same information, right? These are the same typical codes or lines that you'd find in a budget. They could call them something a little different, but you get the general idea. Jolanda, do you have a question?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay. And I hope I was pronouncing it right. If not, I apologize. But just wanted to, okay, very good. Then I will pause there. Budget questions or curiosities, things that you want to clarify, at the moment. Start us out, Arts Accelerator. Tell me your first name so I cannot call you Arts Accelerator.
It's Dana.
Dana, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Kathy. How do you handle in-kind donations?
That's fabulous. That can be other funding sources. If you can put it in there. Again, for the community foundation specifically, and Angelica will correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe this comes to you as when you download it, it is an Excel spreadsheet. So you can add that. You can add a column that says in kind, and you can put what's coming to you in kind as part of that as well.
Yeah, there used to be a specific line item that said in kind, but you can just add it however way, because if we do get the Excel, you're correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And so how does that work? Let's say if someone is donating their time, it versus like a donation of like I don't know, a venue or something like that, right? So how is that looked upon? Is it only a certain percentage that that is favorable? I just how does it all, like, what is your perception and how does that work with
Great question on time, on someone donating their time. There is a national and a statewide value of volunteer time. I am completely blank in this moment in time as to what that website is. As soon as it comes to me, I'll put it in the chat. But you can Google or search engine value of volunteer time. The last time I looked, it was like $27 and some odd cents. It may have gone up from there. But there is, and you can use then that specific dollar amount to, if you're going to have someone in kind donate 20 hours, for a performance or for a outreach to an education program, then you can put that as another funding source, or as an in-kind contribution. And what that shows a funder is that that's part of that collaboration, that's part of that support that helps us see you can do this work. So that's a great thing to add in, right? So it'll come to me in a random point, but there again, you can do a quick search online for the value of volunteer time, and you can find it nationally. And you can also find a specific one for the state of Florida or whatever state, that you're applying to get a sense of what that is. So
Okay, but
that's
not
a great
like
way
a
to do
certain
it.
percentage or things like that.
Not necessarily. That's where you want to read the application and the instructions for an application very, very closely, because there isn't there isn't anything that says only 20% of someone's time can be counted toward in-kind contribution or anything like that necessarily. But individual foundations might have a regulation like that, so that's something to know, right? And that should be clear in their application process, or in their application information. If it's not, and they're doing any sort of Q&A sessions, or we have office hours, that's a good question to check with specifically. But if not, then you can reference that, we're counting, let's imagine we're going to use a volunteer for 20 hours. It's $27.14 an hour. So in that little narrative, you can say, according to this website that's not coming to my mind right now, the national value of volunteer time is this amount. We anticipate 20 hours. It'll be this value. So we're contributing that value as an in-kind to the completion of the project. Right.
Okay, and then that is included in the annual budget.
You certainly can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Tina, question.
Yes, I just figured out how to raise my hand.
Yay.
I'm not entirely clear on how you determine what your anticipation of donations are. So let's say I'm having a summer program of 3 classes and I'm asking for $10,000, and then I list on contributions from other sources, $2,000 in donated product from Blick. But Blick, for one reason or another, doesn't come through. So now I have a big hole in my budget of what I actually need
Right.
to complete the project. So how do I, do you just hope that you get it from all the sources you're requesting it from?
Well, so great question. I'm going to answer it two ways. I'm going to say something we've always said in fundraising: hope is not a strategy, right? So
Mhm.
you want to do more than hope that you're going to get it. You want to have a plan to get it. We also know that in reality, things don't always work the way we plan, right? Or the way that we hoped.
Yeah.
So you want to be fairly realistic about what you anticipate, right? The longer you're with an organization, the longer you're doing the work, you get a sense of, will we be able to raise $2,000 in contributed, goods for whatever the project is. And you start to get a sense of, yeah, I think, it may not all come from GLIC. Some of it may come from two other organizations, because somebody may tell us they're not going to fund us this year, or that, that they can't help us out. But generally, I know I'm going to get that. If you're just starting out, then, we've got to deal with the reality that you may not get all of that in kind that you'd hoped for. So you've got to know, and this is again really tying right back into the work that we're doing, you've got to have looked at can we carry this project on without, right?
Okay.
And is this something that's going to be able to happen without that? If not, you may need to adjust what you're asking for in the grant, right? If
Mhm.
if you just kind of hopeful you're going to be able to get $2,000, but you can do it if you get a total of $5,000, maybe you put the $5,000 in the grant the first year, and then you
Mhm.
see how the rest of that comes in. And then next year, when you say we anticipate being able to raise $2,000 in contributed goods because we did so last year, then that helps everybody feel a little more confident with that process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you really need a plan B, but
You do. Uh-huh. Yeah. But as in the work that we're doing, I mean, we all are pretty good with plans B, C, D, kind of all the way through the alphabet, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah. This is another space where that's going to be important. And
Okay.
just learning how that process works kind of over time. So
That's good. Thanks very much.
yeah, great questions. I appreciate that. I want to bump us through a couple more pieces here, and then I want to move us to a break here shortly. So before we dive into the rest of our time together, but let's talk a little bit now about evaluation, and specifically about indicators. Indicators, it's a term that we use around the Community Foundation that helps us understand how something's going to work. And it also is something that we have to report. So when you hear us talk about, or when you see in an application a question about output or outcome, or just general indicators, just remind yourself that what an indicator shows is why or how something works, right? How you know. So the two questions you ask there, as you can see on the screen, is how are you going to know if it worked, and how will I know, or how would I know if it's being successful, right? And we can break that down into a couple of different things. So this is why it's so good to have that logic model already in place, because your output indicators are the numbers that show what your activities are going to do. And you'll know if that workshop was successful because you had 25 people attend, right? You'll know if that new program was successful because we got a brand new audience to come to the theater, or whatever it is. So those output indicators are numbers that tell what happened because of those activities, or because of what you're proposing in that application. Okay. Outcome indicators, remember, outcomes are behavior changes. So that indicates how you're going to know if someone has either had a change in attitude or knowledge or behavior. So, and you've got some examples on here. Maybe they've received a higher quality of service. Maybe you're doing some internal training with staff members, so that and 25 staff members participate in the training, and as an outcome of that, that your individuals are going to, who are coming for services, are getting a higher quality of service. And you'll know that because in their surveys at the end of their treatment, they're reflecting that they're satisfied at a higher level with their services or something like that. So the outcome is the behavior change. Outcome indicators tell us how you know that someone's behavior or attitude or knowledge has changed, right? So you can't just say people are going to learn how to do something or learn more about something. You also want to be able to tell us how you're going to know that. All right. So indicators are part of your evaluation strategy. And that most of them, are going to either be outputs or outcomes. And all of that feeds into your overall program evaluation strategy. Is how are you going to know overall if it worked, right? You're going to have these indicators, and we're going to ask you, we specifically ask on our evaluations, on our applications and on our reporting, how those indicators have worked for you, right? One of the questions I often get in thinking about indicators and evaluation overall, is that how do you know what the numbers are, right? How do I know that 25 is success, right? What's the perfect number? And our answer to that is that there is no perfect number, but what that number is what you are proposing that you anticipate would mean success. So it needs to be aspirational, but realistic, right? So I always call it a stretch number. I propose that when I run Grants 101, this class that we are all in, that if I have 25 organizations who participate in all 3 sessions and complete the sessions, that is a successful session. I know that because we typically get about 40 or 45 people originally apply or sign up. But then those numbers tend to dwindle. People have other things going on. They realize maybe they're not quite ready yet, a variety of reasons that they don't end up staying through the whole session, the whole series of sessions. And so that's how I would use that as an output indicator. Now, my outcome indicator is that as a result, for those of you who apply through the Community Foundation of Broward's grant process, that we continue to increase the number of you who are successful in that process, or even if you're not successful, still have submitted strong applications, right? You've answered you've got good outcome indicators and output indicators. You've done a good job in your logic model, and we can tell from your timeline how the project's going to work. Okay, so that would be an outcome indicator. Make sense? All right, so and I see I've got a question. Kim Ray, you can pop off mute and let me know your question.
Hi, thank you, Kathy. So question here, when I've submitted and I've put things like increases their confidence or their public speaking ability, you can say increases or will increase, but it's not like some of our goals that we, would talk about or evaluate, they're kind of longitudinal. So increasing like public speaking, I mean, qualitatively, I could probably say, okay, Susie Q came in and wouldn't talk and speak. But then by the end of the program, Susie Q was, talking to everyone or presenting herself, as such. But that gets a little, tricky there when I'm trying to say, that we're going to increase and we have done the program in the past. We had, successful, like we would ask the participants how they, experienced it. But it's longitudinal. So I mean, you know what I mean? Like, how can you show that in a short term?
So there are a couple of ways, and there are lots of great resources out there. Again, you can do a quick internet search and put, successful evaluation strategies for grants, for evaluating grant success or something like that. And you get lots of different resources. One way in the description that you're providing, where you've got some people that are coming in, maybe over a period of time, and you're seeing, or you're anticipating, or you're building a confidence level, a public speaking comfort, and those kinds of things. The first thing that comes to my mind as an evaluation strategy is, let's do a pre and post assessment. You can ask them 3 questions when they walk in the door. On a scale of 1 to 5, how confident do you feel today in whatever it is that you're asking them to do? How comfortable are you with this process? How would you rate your skills in this process? And then when they leave the workshop, you ask them the same 3 questions. So that's a kind of a before and after output.
Yeah.
And then if you can reach back out to them 6 months from now and say, all right, based on the workshop and the things that you've done, what to this point, how would you rate your scale? How would you rate your change? And then it may be that 86% of those who were asked continued to show an increase in confidence, as shown by a post survey and a 6-month post survey, right?
So when you have like nuances, though, I'm sorry for interrupting,
okay.
but nuances, like when you're dealing with youth, right? Kids that barely can write their name,
Yeah.
to pre and post them, it's not really the most,
Well, if it's a written one,
attractive
yeah. But that can be
Sorry.
done verbally too. Right? You could, as they walk in the door, they can do a verbal thing. They could, if it's on Zoom, they can, stick a number in the chat. There's some different ways that could be done, so it doesn't necessarily have to be written. You want to meet them where they are and really think about how, but at the end of the day, what you've got to think about, and what you've got to think that we need to understand, is how will you know this is going to be successful?
Kids.
Okay.
No, I'm just referring to these, they're inner city kids. They don't
Sure.
have, mobile devices.
Okay.
And there's one encounter with them. I don't have them for 6 weeks. I don't have them a semester. I don't come back to them. I don't have phone numbers or emails for them. I can only get 1 hour or 2 hours with them. And then I never see them again. It's been the hardest thing for me to get date. Only thing I've been able to do is, in essence, just assess. I forget the term, but it's like me asking them at the end, how are you going to take any of this with you in the future? What did you learn? That kind of thing. That's all I've been able to collect on this type of experience.
Yeah, well, it's a place to start, right? And something to continue to explore. Again, I'm happy to stick around afterwards, and we can talk in a little bit more detail about that. No, that's okay. It's good points, because we're, ultimately, that leads me a couple directions, and others of you may have projects like this too, where you're just not 100% sure how we're going to truly assess that this is working. Then that may not be the part of the project you ask for funding for, at least not from a foundation that's going to require this kind of feedback. Maybe that's where you get some, that fabulous money from individuals who just say, use it however you need to. We call that unrestricted. Right. So maybe you build a whole case for support for why, as much as our foundations love our work, this is an aspect they can't fund because we can't show any more than this sort of evaluation. We know this is working with all this other anecdotal information. Maybe some of your other donors will help you with that aspect. And maybe that's just not part of the grant application initially, until you've done this long enough that maybe you've had kids come back 3, 4, 5 years later and be able to show you a little bit more of a longitudinal difference. Then maybe that becomes part of the story, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. And again, I'll stick around afterwards if we want to get into it more specifically. But great questions as we really think about your overall evaluation plan and what it is that you're asking for. As much as we would love to say, we'd love to fund everything that you want to do, and we 100% trust that you'll be able to do it and it's going to be great. And we think that every time we read these applications, we're like, this is amazing. I just think we should do this. But we have to be real too, in that what we have to report, so that we can continue to grow the funds that will come back out to you. So sometimes, if there are aspects of the project that are just a little fuzzier, maybe that's not the part that you fund initially. So yeah, good way to think through that. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, you had got a couple tricks in the chat too. Evidence tools. Again, if you do have kids with devices, yeah, there's polling, there's all kinds of things like that you might be able to do. I used to teach fourth grade, so but then I would have kids come back and still talk about I would use star charts. Sounds really hokey. But put a blue star up here if you liked what you did today. Put a green star up here if you thought it was okay. Put a yellow star up here if you thought it stunk or whatever. I mean, there are ways to capture at least some of those initial feelings, regardless of where you are, and way you work with it. So some good feedback from your colleagues as well. Good. All right, so the whole idea of indicators is another piece. The other side of this is things like or I guess in addition to really thinking about these at both the behavioral level, as we were talking about, and even at the community level. And I've got some examples here from our colleagues that you're going to meet in a little bit, really helping to think about what is it that we're looking for from the specific areas that we are funding at the Community Foundation. So if you're talking about education and youth enrichment, it might be a grade completion or high school completion. It might be your reading scores that we're looking for, an assessment of, or work around math scores, literacy. You can see the examples there. Under healthy and thriving communities, some of the indicators that we look for, things like how you're addressing insecurity in a specific area. Or maybe they're facing limited access to specific healthy foods, and a garden project is going to help grow that access. Lots of different examples there. Social and economic mobility, you see anything from the unemployment rate to looking at and impacting those living in poverty. And again, our colleagues will talk a little bit more about these shortly. You'll notice arts and culture is not listed there, which is our fourth area, and that's because those are really individualized. And so Angelica, when she talks with us a little bit later, can touch a little bit on what the evaluators look like in that way. But what you want to do, sorry, I say evaluators, indicators, I've called them both in different ways or in different situations. But you want to be sure that these are speaking to the overarching goals of the project, right? And the area that you're applying for. So if you're applying for a community service grant through another funder that specifically is around education, then you want to make sure you are using some education indicators to show your success, right? You're tying it back to their priorities and yours. And if you can't do that, then that's an indicator it might not be a good fit, right? It might not be the right organization to fund that particular type of project. So use the indicators both as ways that you're going to measure and evaluate your project, but also ways that you're going to measure and evaluate the fit with the funder, right? If they're asking you to measure a bunch of stuff you don't have the capacity to figure out, then that may not be the right fit for you at this point, right? And it'll be thinking about that as you continue forward. The other aspect, actually, before we start in our candid work, and then we'll move to a break. The other aspect of this, in addition to these areas, is really thinking about how we show sustainability. And we talked about this last time, that it's really thinking about what does it mean to have this project continue forward. And as I think I shared with you last time, we know that part of that answer is that we're going to ask you for more funding, right? If you get funding from an organization and they like you, then we're probably going to ask that funder to support us again. But we want to know that we're not going to be the only one, right? As a funder, and that's beyond just the Community Foundation. As a funder, we want to know we're not the only organization supporting your full project. Because I'm going to give you, some words of wisdom, that even as foundations, we end up changing our processes and our priorities at various points. So you can't always be reliant on simply one entity supporting all of the work that you're doing. So part of the answer to sustainability is looking at what other funders are you working with? What does your individual donor growth look like? what corporations are you working with? You know, and what other foundations, you know, are you or could you be working with? And basically, we just want to know what your plan is to keep the project going after the funding that we have granted has completed, right? So, and what we're looking for is that you have a plan, okay? That plan shouldn't just be, as I said, we're going to ask you for more money, and it shouldn't just be, we're going to raise more money. Okay, tell us a little bit about what you have in mind in that way. We know it may not work out perfectly. As we said, you know, maybe the in-kind gifts don't come in exactly as you planned, but we know that you're going to work on those. We know that you've got a plan to bring in some of those in-kind gifts and some of those, you know, individual gifts or whatever they are. So just let us know what that plan looks like. That's what we're looking for in that space. With that, we've been sitting here for a good while. Let's take a break. I'd like to take about 10 minutes. Get up, stand, stretch, check your email, do the things you need to do. I have 3 o'clock on the dot on my clock, so let's come back at 3:10. So with that, I do want to do another quick screen share because one of the other key areas that can be really resourceful and helpful as you're preparing to work with foundations in funding strategies overall, and certainly specifically with the Community Foundation of Broward, because we use this information in the applications, is to take a look at what's called your candid profile. And actually jumped ahead here. The organization Candid is a national organization that took GuideStar and
Kathy,
Foundation Center.
I think you're not showing the full screen.
Oh, thank you. How did they do that? Interesting.
Yeah, we see like a half a screen.
Oh, weird. Let me try. Sorry about that. Let me try that again. How about now? I forgot to ask the thumbs up if you could see the screen okay.
Very good.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Angelica. I appreciate it. Thanks all. All right, let me try that again. As we're thinking about this whole idea of really telling our story, pulling our information together, being ready to work and to apply for funding, the organization Candid is, as I was saying, is a national organization that was a combination of GuideStar and the Foundation Center. If you've been around in this space a while, those two large resource entities sort of combined together to create the organization that's called Candid. And it is a fabulous place for all kinds of great resources. So if you want more work on how to build a grant application, they've got some free classes. If you want information on how to find different funders, they've got a whole process for that. But they also keep a giant database of all the nonprofits that are registered anywhere in the US. And they update those profiles, they're called, based on what's in your IRS information, what you send to the IRS on your 990s. Now, that's both a good thing and somewhat of a hazard in that it is the information that you've provided to the IRS. And right now I think they have just uploaded the 2020 information from the 990s. So if your organization has changed at all since 2020, and I'm going to guess everyone on this call's organization probably has in some way, shape, or form, then you will probably want to be able to update your Candid profile so that when someone looks for you, whether it's a foundation or an individual donor, or, you know, a lot of times this is where the people who have donor advised funds at places like Fidelity or Schwab will look to find out more about your organization. You want to be sure that information is as updated as it can be so that they can get a really good, strong picture of your organization. So if you have not already done so, we're going to walk through the process real quickly here on what it looks like to claim your profile. And you'll be a little ahead of the game. This summer, we're doing a campaign that will be in partnership with Miami-Dade County and Palm Beach County, where all three of us are coming together to help organizations learn more about their candid profiles and start to fill out the applications or the profiles and the updates. So you're getting a little bit of a head start on that by taking a look at this now. And the two things to remember is again, you should be listed on the candid profile if you were filling out a 990 by the year 2000 or by the year 2020, sorry. If you're newer than that, you may not even have a profile on there yet. So there'll be a resource for you. But if you're not and you have not yet claimed the profile, that'll be the first step that you take. And we're going to look at a quick little video for that here momentarily. The other thing to know is that in addition to understanding and claiming your profile and really knowing what's out there online, is that you have an opportunity to earn a credential just for having your profile filled out. They have a whole national, what they call Seal of Transparency campaign. There is no cost to do this whatsoever. It is just simply a way that you can put in information about your organization so that it's visible for donors and funders. And depending on the amount of information you share, then you can earn these various seals. And again, more of that will come out over time as to what that looks like, but that's the two aspects of this candid profile that we're going to talk about and we're going to look at. And the reason this is important specifically to the Community Foundation is that that we use a lot of the information that is in your candid profile in your grant application. Many other organizations do as well. So you can save yourself time in filling out the application if your information on the candid profile is up to date. Because what happens, and you'll see this, you'll see it as you get into the tool, the application over time. What happens is all of the information, the demographic information about your organization that is on that profile feeds our application. So if it's not updated, then we're going to have old information that you're going to have to go through step by step and update. But if it's updated, then you can feel comfortable that because you know you've updated the information, that we've got the most current information that's out there, and that other funders that use this process would as well. So what I'd love to do is to play through this video. I'm hoping that I've got the sound saved the right way. If I tell you what, I'm going to do something just to be safe here. I'm going to do this one more time because I know there's a button that you push to make sure you can do the sound. Okay, yep, there it is. All right, thumbs up again that you can see the screen. All right. All right, this is just a quick video that kind of talks through what this is, what we're talking about here. You can hear it?
Building out your candid nonprofit profile is a great way to build credibility and tell your organization's story to potential funders and donors. The information you share also shows up on our partners' donation sites, including Facebook charitable fundraising and donor-advised funds such as Fidelity and Schwab. Get started to raise your organization's visibility in just 3 simple steps. First, create your Candid account using your work email. Using your work email simplifies the authorization process. Once you have created your Candid account, log in and search for your organization to connect to its profile. Complete a brief form to help us verify that you represent your organization. Then click Submit and our support team will review your request. You can start updating your organization's profile as soon as the request is approved. All you need to earn a bronze seal of transparency is to share basic organizational info. Add more information to earn silver, gold, and platinum seals. Get started today. Create your account and claim your organization's profile to tell your story.
All right, so as you can see, it's a pretty simple process. And it makes sure that your information is then visible to as many potential funders and donors as possible, right? So if you haven't done this, make a note somewhere on your calendar in the next week or so to find your and claim your candid profile and check out the information that is on there. What I can tell you is that when I first came to the foundation a little over 2 years ago, they were just rolling out the ability to update profiles on Candid. So I jumped on knowing nothing about the process and having worked for the foundation about 3 weeks. And I was able to, with just the information that I could find, I was able to update us all the way up to the gold level. And just recently, as we did our revi, you do this once a year, you do your updates so that everything is up to date. And just recently the updates were done and we were able, you may have even seen news shared last week that we were able to get to the platinum level for the foundation itself. You can do that too. It's just simply with a matter of putting the information in that it's asking for, and it's demographic and other fairly public information. So it's what most organizations can find. But there is no, great question, this does not cost a dime. This is all free. The Candid is here as a resource for you. I would block a little time in your calendar just to check out all the resources there. I know I keep saying that. I know what your calendars look like. They look like mine, but I promise you this is going to be time well spent. Because they do, as I said, have a lot of learning resources and a lot of information. And again, this process just takes a few minutes to do. So it's an important space where, again, once you get into our application profile, for example, where you're actually filling out the application, you could save yourself a ton of time because all this feeds right into it. All you have to do is check and make sure the numbers are up to date, and then you can just go on with the other pieces. It's once you update it here, any funder that's using the Candid connection, which most are, will have your updated information, and you don't have to keep filling this same information out, application after application. So it is rolling out. More and more funders are learning about it and applying it. But like I said, many, particularly in Broward, I think most of the organizations are using this process. So I just want to be sure you were aware of that. We're not going to take time now to dig in deeply to it because I want to be sure we have plenty of time to talk about our grant process that we've got going here. But I did want to be sure that you saw that. Let's keep going here. Made a note to be sure to take a little bit of time to do that. So with all of that, we've spent the last 2.5 sessions together learning about what does it take to be ready for a grant. What are all those different aspects of readiness? What does it take to build a project and to put a project together? And then what does it take to actually build an application, right? And I make that as 3 separate pieces, because many times when an organization is new to working with foundations, they hear that a foundation has a grant and then they jump in and try to apply and build the project as they go, kind of as they're filling out the application. I can promise you, and my colleagues will agree here, that we know when that's what you've done. It becomes very visible to us that you haven't had a chance to really think through the whole project yet. And that you're trying to do that as you fill out the application. So take the time to build those other aspects, and that will have you ready to begin to fill out an application, such as the one that we use here at the foundation. And before I turn this over to my colleagues, I do want to share some brand new information with all of you. We have, some of you may be familiar with our Small and Emerging Nonprofit Grant Program. And it's a pilot that we've been doing for the last 3 years for organizations whose budgets are under $500,000 in size, for organizations that have been in operation at least 2 years. So we've done a pilot for that for about 3 years. In fact, I think a few of you may have even either applied under that or been funded through our small grants project. And we have, from all of that, we've been listening to a lot of the feedback and learning, and we have made a shift in the way that that's going to work moving forward. So we're super excited about the fact that what now is going to be the case is that any organization that is applying through the Community Foundation will have access to our 4 focus areas. That if you're a smaller organization, you don't have to fill out something separate. It won't be a separate process. You'll be part of the overall grant making process of the Community Foundation within our 4 focus areas. Oh, I'm getting excitement already. Thanks, Antaria. I appreciate that. Now I will also let you know that this is really, really recent. So we don't have all the answers yet as to exactly how this is working. What we know, and what my colleagues will then kind of help walk you through, is that from now on, again, within a few parameters, any organization that works in and serves Broward County and wants to come to us for funding will identify which focus area that they fit best in and will apply in that area. Right, and will apply and be part of all of the benefits that our regular grantees get by being part of our Power Builders peer groups that we have, getting information about the funding, the support, and so on. Again, we're still working out a little bit of the details here. There will still be a sort of a subsection of each focus area that the smaller organizations will be evaluated through. You'll be using the same application, so we're all having the same application. You'll be going through the same processes, but you will not necessarily, if you're a $100,000 organization, you'll not necessarily be peered against. Your application won't be put up against a $5 million organization. We'll still have some separate review or sectioned out review, but we wanted you to be sure that you understand, you're still part of that overall process. And that we can thank all of you and the great feedback we've gotten. Certainly for those of you that have been part of the process with us, we appreciate your growing with us and indulging us in our growth process as well as we've made this shift. So we're excited about it. We need a little grace in that we are still working through some of those details, but what we will promise you is that as those are confirmed, that information will be made clear to you. We will put it everywhere we can possibly put it so that we know that you get it. And that way, all of us are working through the same process. The other thing I'll just make a point of is that you may have gotten some information about a small grant round that we were going to run starting May 20th. Because of all of these shifts, we've paused that. That we're going and what I don't have is the date of when we're going to open up everything, because that's part of this stuff that we're still working on. But you will be the first folks to know. We will immediately send out, I've got everybody's email. We will immediately send out an email and say, here's what we know, here's the information. So if you were counting on a May 20th grant round, hold off. But early in the summer, we should have all the details ready, and still it will be, grants will be open in a similar time frame. All right. Okay, so that's a lot of information that I've shared with you. What I'd love to do now is to introduce you to my colleagues. And if I can get to that, Angelica, Cassandra, and Tina. These are 3 of my colleagues on the grants team. These are the folks that know all the answers, and will be helping us have the rest of the answers as we go through the process. And I believe they are all on with us today. Angelica is Director of Community Impact over Arts and Culture and Education and Youth. Cassandra is also Director of Community Impact over Social and Economic Mobility and Healthy and Thriving Communities. And then Tina, who you all may have already interacted with in one form or another, is the Manager of Community Impact. And she is, she keeps us all sane for one, but she is in charge of and the guru on the application process. She, all of the tech support stuff. She is the first call when you can't get into the grant application process or you've got a question about how that works. She also coordinates all of the office hours that we run. So if you've got questions, you want to sit down and talk one-on-one about an idea, you want to understand a little more about the process, maybe you're a first-time applicant, maybe you're coming back and you want to apply in a different, in a different area. Tina coordinates all of those office hours that the rest of us jump into to be resourceful for you. So with that, I'm going to invite, we'll start with Angelica. Actually, this lays out the grant making areas that we cover, which I have talked about quite a bit. And the four key areas: education and youth enrichment, healthy and thriving communities, social and economic mobility, and arts and culture are where we typically look for and will have open grant applications for you to apply. We do also do some work in racial equity, diversity, and inclusion, as well as specifically within some programming through the Nonprofit Center. Those are invitation only, and we let folks know when that information is available so that we can determine whether that you would be a good fit for a project like that. So we're going to focus on those other key focus areas. And let me turn this over to Angelica to say hello, introduce herself, and to tell you a little bit about the two areas that she manages.
Thank you, Kathy. It is so nice to see so many of you guys here on the screen this afternoon. Again, my name is Angelica Rosas. I am one of the two directors of Community Impact. I manage all of our grants that has to do with education, youth enrichment, and art and culture. And I just wanted to kind of kick things off a little bit here this afternoon, as Kathy was mentioning about how the small and emerging grants process has evolved. So has our overall grant making here at the foundation. We're going into year 3 of what we call the focus area grant making process, which is those 4 areas that you saw on the previous slide, the 2 that I cover and the ones that Cassandra are going to talk about a little bit after me. What I wanted just to share is when we moved into this focus area grant making mindset, it allowed us to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit more be able to support projects on a better kind of time frame than before, when we used to have one deadline per year per focus area. So this kind of provided a little bit more flexibility for us and also for the nonprofit, so that you can submit an application when you're good and ready to do that. So what I wanted to share about education and youth enrichment is that is solely focused on our young people. We have other categories where some of these areas might be applicable to adults who are also looking for educational opportunities, but that will not fall under education and youth enrichment. That will be social and economic mobility. But for education and youth enrichment, we are looking for opportunities that would help our young people here in Broward of all abilities to have an opportunity to excel and grow. I can tell you that from the past 2 years of grant making, our most popular category is the exposure to new opportunities. And so exposure to new opportunities is just that. It is for opportunities, programs to take our young people on, let's say, field trips, to connect them to STEM opportunities, to connect them to opportunities that are outside of their usual normalcy or normal day, where they might get a spark plug as to what it is that they want to do with the rest of their lives. Whether they want to decide, oh, I want to become a firefighter, or I want to go to college. I want to go on some college tours, or I want to learn a little bit more about what's happening in marine biology because we took a trip to the ocean, things like that. So I say that to say that since this has been one of our most popular categories, we're very much looking for more applications under especially our K through 12 academic achievement, which is exactly what that is. It is to helping our young people move through the grades and the school system. It could be at private schools, it could be at charter schools, it could be at Broward County schools. It doesn't matter. It is to help our young folks academically to make sure that they know their English, they know their math, their core subjects, and that they are having everything that they need in order to become a graduate of high school, right? And be able to either move on to some post-secondary or some other vocational training, or just get a job or get their GED, that sort of thing. So we're really looking for programs in that subcategory, if you will. Work-based learning is exactly what it says as well. It is programs that we're looking for in a community where our young people will have that opportunity to earn those very critical life and soft skills, to learn how to be punctual, to learn how to write a resume, to learn how to look a person in the eye, all of those kinds of good things that will be that first kind of job opportunity. We're not looking just for programs to teach these skills. We want them to learn on while in a job, whether that is a part-time summer job, if it's an internship, or even a volunteer opportunity, because you still have to have all of these type of all of these kind of skills in order to grow and be successful in life, if you will. So that is kind of what education and youth enrichment is all about. And so, like I said, exposure to new opportunities is the most popular category. K through 12, we're looking for more opportunities in that area. Any questions, or should I move on to art and culture?
Let's go ahead. We'll go through all of these and then we'll open up to questions.
Gotcha.
Perfect.
All right. So art and culture is a completely different bucket, of course. And as you had heard Kathy mentioning before, when it came down to indicators and whatnot, this is one of those categories where we don't really have it. And maybe I should have said for education that the indicators that Kathy mentioned before, pay attention to those, because those are good. We're looking to see increases, improvements, all of those kinds of things, whether that is, how they are feeling as far as different types of, behavior that they're improving, or their skills are improving, or their grades are improving, that sort of thing. For art and culture, we are trying to make sure that all Broward residents have greater access to the arts. We want to make sure that Broward County is a vibrant, hopping art scene where everybody can have an opportunity to enjoy and participate in the arts. And so therefore, what we're trying to do, we have there's 4 subcategories that could be applied for. I'm going to say right off the bat that the last category, individual artist, we only do that through a partnership with Broward County Cultural Division and also with the City of Pompano Beach. So that's not something that you can apply for here at the foundation if you are an individual artist. You have to reach out to the county or to the City of Pompano Beach. So then, for arts education, for example, it is like I said, this is for all ages, young, old, everything in between, people of all abilities, LGBTQ+. We want to make sure everybody's included and see themselves accessing the arts in Broward. So arts education is just exactly kind of what it says. It's an opportunity for everybody to use the arts as a literacy tool, as a tool to grow and express themselves, and perhaps stimulate a career path in the arts, right? And so that can look like many different ways. And so we're looking for you guys to be creative and what that would look like and propose that to us. Art therapy is a little bit more, concrete, if you will, because what it is that we want to make sure that people that are suffering, people that are struggling, anything like that, that need some sort of mental health help, perhaps, or just need to express some feelings that they have. Art therapy is for them to be able to use arts as a tool to express themselves and to heal or move forward in whatever that scenario is that they're going through. Cultural assets. If you're a cultural asset type of organization or an art and culture organization in Broward, this category is absolutely for you. We want to make sure that we make it very easy for cultural organizations to apply under this category. It is, I don't want to necessarily say that you can apply for general operating support, but we want to support and sustain our art and culture organizations in Broward through that subcategory, because we know that art and culture organizations are the ones that takes the biggest hit and the first hit when there's any type of budget cuts. So if you want us to continue to support your organization, if there's particular programming that you're missing support for, that category is for you to kind of tell us how you will create greater access to residents in Broward. The last category then, or the 4th, according to the list, is for traditional arts. It is for any organization who would like to apply to put in or put forward some sort of traditional arts programming, whether you want to provide a film festival, if you want to paint a mural, if you want to put in some public arts, things like that is what we're looking for under traditional arts. And again, everything should be open to everyone, or I know that there's going to be some restrictions of some of the programs, so maybe I should take that back. But overall, what we're looking for art and culture is that we want to make sure that the arts comes alive for everyone in Broward and that they have an opportunity to participate. That is what I'm trying to kind of wrap this up with. And I saw that there was some chats coming in. Do you want to take chat questions now, or do you want me to hold off until after Cassandra?
Actually, let's go ahead and pause here because it's a good spot for some of those questions. And as questions come up as you're listening, please feel welcome to pop them in the chat, and then we'll be sure to get to them. But yeah, one of them right up front was asking if the opportunity, the work opportunity, I think in specific was what this one was talking about, have to be in Broward. And Cassandra said yes, it definitely applies to Broward County residents, but does the job have to be in Broward? I don't know the answer to
So
that too.
that is a tough question. If we're talking about kids who may or may not be able to drive, then one would think that the job opportunity should be very close in proximity to them. So though all of our focus area grants are focused solely on Broward County residents, we do want to make sure that, you know, transportation shouldn't be a hinder, that they don't have to take 3 buses in order to make it to a job, that sort of thing. So I get it. If you are having a program in Coconut Creek and Boca's right next door, of course, that could kind of work, right? But it's still, again, it has to be for the benefit of the Broward County resident that you're serving.
That's a good way to clarify that. Another one, does K-12 also include VPK students?
No, it starts at K.
We start at K. All right, good. Tina, you have a question. Go ahead and pop off mute.
Okay, got it. I'm impressed by myself.
Yay!
I have a youth exhibit every year in October, and it's 6th grade through 12, and it's a wonderful response, but we can never get into the public schools because they say that we're selling. We charge $10 for each child, and they can bring 2 pieces. So I'm wondering if I would qualify for funding for that, just for that event, because a side effect of what I like to give them is a swag bag, because we always find that kids don't have a single crayon at home sometimes. So I'd like to get something. It would involve funding besides the actual exhibit. I'm looking at more of their takeaway, not only the exposure to sell, because we also sell their artwork on our website after the show, but what I could give them to take away and go home and finish being an artist, continue being an artist. I'm sure it's too late for this year because it's in October, but going forward, would I qualify for funding for that, just that one event?
Let me jump in real quick, and then Angelica, and then she'll answer your specific question. But what I want to do is help you understand that for all of you, these are the kinds of questions, these are the great sorts of things that you can walk through with us during our office hours. So you'll notice on our calendar that we've got office hours every month. So these, and Angelica will answer you today, Tina. So I'm glad that you asked it, but this is the kind of stuff that we can get pretty detailed with you on as part of those office hours. But go ahead, Angelica.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to suggest for you as well, because it is not a yes or no kind of answer on this question for you. So please make join us for the next focus area, and we can have a deeper conversation around this.
Great.
Because that, I think we need to have that, because I don't want to say just yes or no, because there are some nuggets there that I would like to learn more about. So if you could do that, that would be great.
I will definitely do that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Any other questions before we'll jump into the other 2 areas? Again, keep the questions coming in the chat too, and then we'll circle back to those. I don't see any others. So with that, let me turn this over now to Cassandra Burrell. She is our other director of community impact, as we said, over the other two areas. So Cassandra, tell us a little bit about, or introduce yourself first and let everybody get to know you. And we can talk a little bit about your areas as well.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cassandra Burrell, and I serve as one of the other directors of Community Impact. And I just realized what you guys had up first, because I was getting ready to tell you about healthy and thriving
I
communities.
can switch.
So
You tell
good
me.
thing because I was like, wait, that's not, is that what I'm looking at? Okay. Well, don't worry, whichever area, either way, you guys, I am more than happy to read your applications. So healthy and thriving communities, as you'll see, the aim is already up there. So obviously improve health equity, well-being across all populations in Broward County. So let me make sure I say Broward again. These are for Broward County residents, right? So our goal is to make sure that that we are addressing their well-being in every form. So you'll see physical health is there, mental health, food and nutrition, environmental education, and sustainability. And what I can tell you is physical health, basically what we're looking for is to create social and physical environments that promote good health for all ages. So my bucket area goes for every age, every demographic. So we go from utero. What is the thing that I heard somebody say, and I hate saying it, but from cradle to the grave. I don't want to say that, but you know what I mean. You get the picture, guys. So everybody in between. And then we also promote programs addressing chronic diseases and prevention and intervention and all of the above under physical. With mental health, this happens to be one of the boxes that we usually have the most applications for. So I can tell you healthy and thriving communities is probably the most funded area, specifically under mental health. So under there, we're looking to reduce some of the stigma regarding mental health services and normalizing help and self-care. We look at applications that are dealing with increasing access, especially for low-income communities in our county that are dealing with mental health, just to provide them with mental health services, and then provide innovative outlets and resources for continued mental health support. So that usually falls under the mental health piece. I know, I'm sorry, guys, I'm working on a space that might be loud with my husband's also working, so I apologize for that if you're hearing any noise. And then environmental education and sustainability. What we do under there is promote environmental health programs and intervention. We do education programs for youth and adults. What's important under here is to make sure that education lines up with some of the climate resiliency, and we're looking at advocacy pieces, and we're looking at all of those things under this. And of course, food and nutrition. We're looking at people that are food insecure, right? We're looking at how we're addressing those needs, how we're bringing, filling in the gap for maybe deserts, food deserts in our area. So all of these things come into play. And of course, if there's a feeding program at a school, if there's a feeding program in your community. So all of these things is what we're looking for under food and nutrition. Should I move on, Kathy? Any questions? We wait, right?
Yeah,
All
go
right.
ahead and finish up these two, and then we'll circle back on any questions or clarifications that anybody might have.
Sure. And then next up is our social and economic mobility. And with social and economic mobility, what are we looking for? Usually this falls under our ALICE population, but it can go anywhere. We're aiming to help hardworking residents, right, to be equipped and move from financial stability and have some strong economic foundations. And of course, the end goal is to break the cycle of poverty and make sure they have some independence. So under this under this bucket area are projects that we recommend usually are addressing removal of barriers, and these look very different, right? So breakthrough systemic barriers for accessing economic options, opportunities, and outcomes. But I'll break it down to you so you guys can understand it a little bit more. If you know that a client is willing to work, is able to work, can work, has all the certificates, but they can't get to work. That's probably a barrier. It's probably a transportation issue. It's probably a childcare issue. It's probably the fact that they don't have any computers or internet services if they get a remote job. So all these things are barriers that we look at. And for us to be able to enhance this individual's financial stability, maybe we need to help remove some of those barriers. Next up, we have talent pipeline. And I don't know if I'm going in order, Kathy, because I'm freestyling. Tell me if I am, but is the talent pipeline next? Oh, talent pipeline was first, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay, you're getting there.
Okay.
It's all
Talent pipeline, to build a stronger pipeline of diverse talent and economic growth. And what we want to do is reduce the skill gap. So think about what Angelica said under her focus area, but it's dealing with kids. My area is dealing with adults and some young individuals. There is a cutoff. I find that a lot of times there's a gray area when we say the youth. Our young people, what we're looking to help under my bucket area, it looks like 18 and over, but we're not necessarily stopping at like 21 and 22. So some of those ages, they can go up to whatever because they're adults still trying to work on reducing that skill gap. So think about that when you're applying their talent pipeline. We're looking for individuals that aren't necessarily fitting into the 4-year programs, right? So we're looking at people that want to be plumbers, they want to be HVAC, they want to do work with, you know, in electrical or any of those type of pipelines. We want to make sure we're funding individuals, our agencies that are helping fill those skill gaps. And then we have future financial success, and that's usually some sort of pathway to education and how to empower underserved individuals through greater financial opportunities. So we're looking at helping individuals get a checking account, helping them understand what it looks like to be financially stable, financial literacy programs. So all of those usually fall under future financial success. Again, we do not have an age group under there. And then entrepreneurship, I apologize, it's no longer one of the buckets. They have merged. Future financial success and entrepreneurship are together. And we're looking at moving forward those small businesses, Black-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, just to make sure that we are supporting them and in their venture of entrepreneurship.
Awesome. There was a lot going on there, and that's again what's one of our busy areas too. So thank you, Cassandra and Angelica, for sharing that information. There were a couple of questions. We've got some clarification. Someone asked about a food desert and what exactly that looks like. We had a couple of folks sort of jump in on that. And then you'd also talked a little bit about the ALICE population. Many organizations know what that is. It was a test for me to remember what it stood for. I've got that in the chat. But I guess I'd love a little more clarification if you or anybody knows it about, like, is that a specific, income level, or is that is it just a more broad characteristic? I don't know the answer to that either.
Sure, Tina, you want to take this?
Yeah, there is a specific income level, excuse me, sorry, a very specific income level that falls into the ALICE population. The definition is defined by the United Way of, the National United Way. They do this research and they bring it down to the state level and also the county level where they have that information. But it includes the ALICE population. And these are people who are working families who can't afford to live where they're living. Is basically the plain definition of it. And then
the working poor.
And I don't like saying the working poor, but that's exactly who it's including. And then it also includes those individuals who are in poverty as well. So they break out these individuals and do research behind this to really identify what populations, what zip codes, what census tracts we need to be focusing on when it comes to our services. And we definitely take a look at that as we do our work as well.
Thank you, Tina and Cassandra, and great opportunity to also say hello to Tina Hudson, who, as I shared, is our manager of community impact. And we've got a couple more questions in the chat to take a look at, and then we'll turn this over to Tina to talk to us a little bit about our grant making process and some resources, one of which that we're all really proud of, that Tina did for us, that has all of this information that we're talking about highlighted in it. So we'll take a look at that here in just a second. Let's see there. Let's see. No, I thought I saw another question in the chat. Yeah. Supporting women to complete a certificate or a degree, would that specifically fall under future financial success, Cassandra, or is that one of those that you need to know more about before you can answer clearly?
Yeah, I would need to know a little bit more about it, but it's not just women. I mean, we're open obviously to any and every one. I just made that differentiation because of the age, to see yourself either under Angelica's youth and enrichment or under social and economic mobility. So that's the only reason I use that. It could be anybody.
Yeah, great. Well, and so yeah, so a program that was specific to supporting women for something like that would fit there. Yeah, that makes sense. And then if your mission transcends across some of these segments, we love this question because we get it a lot. What's the best approach?
You want me to take it?
Sure, starts out. You can all jump in.
So what I always try and tell organizations is, unfortunately, you can only apply under one focus area. You can't submit 4 applications. So even though I'm sure, you do wonderful things and all that kinds of good stuff. So with that in mind, you need to figure out where is your greatest need. And if you have multiple ways to connect to the foundations, meaning the focus areas, then figure out where's the greatest need for what program, and then figure out what is it that you're trying to accomplish and what does that connect back to our focus area. You see what I mean? Like, kind of begin with the end in mind and then work your way backwards to see how you can connect to a focus area. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
It's kind of, yeah, I appreciate, we just got a lot going on, and there's just, I recognize there's passion across different foundations and that we have a couple of different things that can connect. I'm just trying to see how the best way to navigate this, which is great. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, another piece that I might offer is this might fit back into some of the previous pieces that we've talked about. Where are you most ready? Right? Is there a particular part of the work that you're doing where you've got a good sense of what kind of indicators you could use for success, and you're feeling, maybe you've got a good sense of what that budget breakdown would look like and how you could make that happen. Sometimes that's the best way to start, particularly if you either haven't been funded by us before or you haven't been funded for a while. That way you can get the piece that is going to be successful and get that funded, and then start to develop some of those other pieces and parts to connect those in as well. So, certainly in your case, Dr. Joe, that might be a way to start thinking about it. And I know several of our colleagues have lots of different aspects of the work that they do. So, you can think about it for a little bit from that lens as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very good. Other questions on the 4 focus areas before we jump into a little bit about the process, about our grant making software or platform that we use, and then any just general questions that people may have. Not seeing any. There's a Zoom presenter trick that you wait 7 seconds after you ask a question, which is a little longer than you wait in a classroom, but because we've all got our technology going, it may take a minute to get the mute turned off, or it may take a minute to get the comment put in the chat. So that's why you hear a little longer pause on some of these. But I didn't hear anything or get anything popped into the chat during that time, even my little filler time there. So let me turn this over and again, reintroduce you to Tina Hudson, who, Tina, maybe just talk a little bit about the application process. I've shared we're in a little bit of a changeover mode in what some of this is going to look like. So we can speak to what we know today now, and then we can move into what things are going to be moving forward. Oh, we did just get a question. This is a great feed to you, Tina, about the access code. So let me just introduce Tina, and Tina, tell us a little bit about the process and at least what we know today.
All right, can I share my screen?
You should be able to. If not, let me stop mine. I keep forgetting I even had mine open.
I do want to, oh, am I on the right one? Yes. Sure.
Yeah.
Can you all see my screen? It should be the Community Foundation homepage.
We can.
All right, so this is I just want to do a quick walkthrough, and they actually changed some of the things, some of the features. Let me introduce myself again. Hello, everyone. My name is Tina Hudson. I'm the manager in the Community Impact Department. So all of those questions that you have for the back end will come to me. Also know that email is the best for me. We wear a lot of hats around here, so email is best. It gets me to where I need to go faster and help you out faster. So, and office hours, as well, as Kathy has mentioned, that you can register for. So coming to our homepage, a really quick way that you can get there is to come up here to log in and drop down to nonprofits. And that will take you to our homepage. I'm not going to click it because it will redirect me, and I don't want that. So when you're logged in, if you have someone else, our system is it's kind of sensitive. So if you have started the process of signing up and you haven't completed it all the way out, as in the registration for the email, it's going to give you, it's going to give you some errors. I think the first thing that you can do if you ever have gone through the process of trying to sign up and haven't been able to go through is to look through your junk mail. Sometimes our email will go through into our junk mail. There is no access code that you need to sign up for this portal. Okay, so there is absolutely no access code for the actual portal sign up. If you don't get an email from the system, check your junk mail. If you don't get an email from the system, it also might mean that you haven't gone through the whole process. Check if someone else in your organization has gone through the whole process, because that is something that comes up as well, and they would be able to add you. And I'm going to show that. And these are just going to be a getting acquainted type of thing when you're getting into the system. So on that login page, you can either, all right, it's going to sign me out, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it because we want to see it from the beginning. Let's go ahead. You also see the login page. Okay, we're going to go to nonprofits. It's going to take you here. You can go ahead and create a new account if your organization has not created a new account before. If you're unsure if your organization has created an account, ask me, let me know. The weird thing about this system, again, is that if you create two different accounts, it will not connect it together. It will not know that they are together. So make sure you only create one account for your organization. And again, if you need to know if there is more than one account, or there's already an account created for your organization, you can reach out to me and I can look that up for you. When you get into your account, if you know for sure that someone else has already created an account for your organization, you can come up, the person who created that account can come up here to organization history. And then they can come under contacts. Under contacts, they'll be able to invite you as someone, a part of the organization. Okay, that way you will be able to see all of the applications that have been created and everything that is going on for that particular account. Again, you do not want to create a separate organization because it will only show you what you see if you've applied for us before. Are there any questions on that? Because that can be a little bit. We're good? Great. All right. So we can go ahead and take a venture into the focus area grant. So when you come to your actual application page, this is what you're going to see when you hit apply. And like Kathy said, we're going to be merging everyone who is applying, whether you're in the small and emerging nonprofit grant program or you're applying for the focus area. All of it's going to be that focus area application, so we can get that really good, robust information when it comes to our indicators and things of that nature. These dates will change. This whole content will most likely change. Like Kathy said, we're going to be revamping some things, so all of this will change. But the eligibility quiz will always be here. They're going to be very general questions, but sometimes, you know, you might read it wrong. It might, you know, you might not answer the questions in the way that you thought it was supposed to be answered, and you get a message that says you're not eligible to apply. If you get that message and you feel like it's an error, again, reach out to me. I can reset this quiz for you, okay? But basically the purpose of this eligibility quiz is to usher you into the correct application. Again, like Kathy mentioned, there still is an emerging and nonprofit grant program. So if we need to usher you there, you will be over there so we can evaluate your application accordingly. Same thing with the small and emerging nonprofit grants, but all of the applications that we receive will be under our 4 focus areas, which is great. So I've already kind of filled this out and I want to show you submit application. Let me submit eligibility quiz. This is what you will see if you're eligible. Okay. And then the application will come up, and I don't know if right now I should tell folks that Kathy, let me know that we closed out our 2023-24.
Yeah, well, if I remember right, this is where we're going to need a little grace from all of you, but if I remember right, that anybody who already has an application in, it will still be considered. If you can go in now and fill out, if you haven't yet created your profile in our grant system, you can do that, or you can check to be sure that yours is filled out. But if you haven't already started an application, you're going to have to give us a little pause here, because we're regrouping a little bit to get everything ready to roll out in this new way. And we anticipate that to be in the summertime. I think we're saying July to be sure that we have everything ready, but you will be the first to know. I've got everyone's email. So you'll get notice as soon as it opens up. And we will also, and I was going to mention this later, but I'll share now, we'll also be doing some ongoing training. As the new application comes out, there will be opportunities to walk through it sort of step by step. We'll probably have a session on creating evaluations and indicators specifically, because that's new for a lot of organizations. You know, we may do a budgeting workshop. So there'll be some additional workshops that will help with a lot of this. So know that, you know, that you've got that plus the office hours for when you have questions as this process rolls out.
Exactly. All righty. Did you want me to go through the GuideStar questions? Because I can do those.
Let's look at that. But before, I also want to look at the focus area grant guide. I just want them to know that's out there. This is also a piece that we're going to be doing some updates to. But in the meantime, we just want you to know that we do track all of this data that we're sharing today. And we'll make sure that everything is available to you. So here's what we have for the moment. And you can see, you know, it goes through, just all of it. All of the information we were sharing you about the different focus areas is there. There'll be some updated information for those of you that have smaller organizations as to what that looks like. And it just everything, you know, so just know that we've got all this information for you easily and readily available. We're not trying not to make any of this process secret or complicated. Everything is spelled out for you. So that's something Tina put that together for us. There's a team collaboration, but she definitely put it all together. And those updates will be made this summer as well. So that's great. And then, yeah, as we talked about, your candid profile, once you claim that and update your information, that will save you and us some time. So yeah, Tina, if you can show them a little bit of how that feeds in, that would be really helpful.
Okay. All right, you guys, don't look at this. This is the back end. This, you won't see this. Took up my 2-screen availability, so I have to wait. But yes, like Kathy said, all of this will be updated. We're taking our fiscal year begins in July, so we're taking a pause to really just get it back together and focused and make sure that it is comprehensive for both programs, our small and emerging nonprofits and our focus area grantees who have that capability to do more. Okay, so the GuideStar questions. So we do have these GuideStar questions here. These are going to remain at the beginning. When you first start your application, it's going to give you a pop-up that says, do you want to copy over GuideStar information? So anything with this C is going to copy over from GuideStar. Like Kathy mentioned, it's really beneficial and helpful when you fill out that GuideStar, the candid application, because all of that information can just be pulled right into here. And then you'll have something else that we collect is the number of board members, the demographics of the organization. So as you put that information into that system, that candid system, all of this will pull automatically for us, and you don't have to keep filling it out for us and every other funder that's going to be asking you for it. You can change it in here. Just note that this does not change and reflect back into Candid. So the best thing to do is to make sure that you have your Candid profile updated as much as you possibly can. And I think that, is there any specific questions you want me to point out for the application, or?
Really not at this point. Everything that we've talked about in your readiness and the application process is in this particular application. So, where she stopped right here, you see there's a question about your annual operating budget. And you put in what it was last year, your total revenue and your total expenses, what it is this current year. And then you can upload that file. Remember, I gave you a hint at what format we love. We don't require that particular format, but I'll tell you that really, really helps us out when you can use that. And it's in the handout you can take a look at. And then there's even a place where you can do a little bit of explanation. So it might be that if your expenses exceeded your revenue, there's a reason for that. You may have had a year where, I don't know, we had a pandemic that kind of changed things for a lot of people. You may have had an intentional year where you spent down a little bit of money that had been banked for some reason. Just let us know that if the budget is not balanced, just let us know why. And again, what you're doing, we are not judging your organization. We're not trying to tell you how to do your work. We are trying to understand that you have the capacity to manage a grant gift appropriately. And so that's why we ask questions like that. What we didn't talk at all about, though, Tina, was fiscal sponsorship. And though I don't know how many organizations on this call would be in that boat, but if you or someone has a brand new nonprofit that doesn't yet have a 501c3, then we only fund organizations that do have that designation and can show proof of work for the last at least 2 years. But a brand new organization could possibly work with another organization that does have a 501c3. We would grant to that organization, and then that organization would grant out to you if that was the case. And so on that somewhat unusual situation, there would be a few questions that you would fill out if that were the situation. If you are looking at that sort of proposal, please jump on some of the upcoming office hours with us so that we can talk specifically about what that would look like, and the details of how that would work. So use those office hours as great opportunities to reach out to us. We will do our best with email as well. As Tina said, that's a great way to reach us as well. But at the end of the day, that's a great way to get a quick answer. Because, as you might imagine, all of our inboxes stay pretty full with lots and lots of really great questions. So if you're looking for a quick answer, jump on an office hours time with us, and we should be able to answer you pretty quickly. Yeah, I think that's for right now. That gives everybody at least a way to look at the process. So I think we're good on any of those. A lot of times at this point in the session, we'll walk through the application. I don't want to do that because we may make a few edits, but what I can assure you is that all the aspects of an application that we've talked about in this class will be visible as part of the application. It may just look a little different than it does today. But we'll have some sessions on walking through the application specifically. Tina and I always do a recorded session as well that we put out for anybody to watch at your leisure. So once that is all finalized, we will have that available to you as well. So with that, I thank all of my colleagues for being part of our time today, and for being able to let all of us put our faces and names together so that you can see who's doing the work here at the foundation. We're not a mystery. We're not a scary black hole of space with people just making random decisions. We have a team of people. Every last one of us has been in the nonprofit sector, on the nonprofit side at one point or another. So we are here. We get where you're coming from. We've answered a lot of questions. We've raised a lot of questions amongst our own team too. So we are here to be a support for all of you. So again, thank you to Angelica and Tina and Cassandra for being part of our discussion today. And what that does is that leads us up to sort of the last of our time together. We've been together for 3 full sessions, and so my final, I guess, words to your congratulations to all of you who've been part of our session today, and particularly to all of you who have been with us for all 3 sessions. Sort of the what's next piece now is for those of you who have been in all 3 sessions. You will hear back from me with a instruction on where you can get your certificate. We have just moved to a digital badging process, a new company that's going to be able to promote or to provide you a physical certificate if you would like one, but also a digital badge, which is just that little sort of picture that you can put on your email. You can put it on your website. You can put it on your grant application if you want to let people know that you have developed the skills through a Grants 101 workshop. So that is a new process that the foundation through the Nonprofit Center specifically is providing some credentialing for those of you who spend your time with us, so that you can let other people know about the skill sets that you are continuing to grow along your path for excellence. So that's something we'll continue to work on. You will hear from me in an email as a follow-up with the details of that. I need just a little more grace on that. We're getting that process ironed out as well. So just like many of you, we're in growth mode and getting some new pieces and parts in place. So with that, as soon as we wrap up, you will get an email that has the handout from today. Remember, that does have everyone's email information, so you can reach out to us through that and ask any other questions that you have. Keep an eye on our website, specifically under the Community Foundation, or excuse me, specifically under the Nonprofit Center. That's where you can register for all of the office hours that are coming up if you've got questions, and it's where you can register for upcoming classes and other workshops and trainings as well. And within, hopefully by Wednesday, end of business, I will have a shortened and cleaned up version of this session today that I will get out to all of you, so that if there's anything that you want to review back through, that will be available to you. With that, let me ask for any final questions. Now you're all counting to 7 in your head with me, aren't you? Well, again, thank you for spending the time with us. Thank you for working through Grants 101. And again, look for some follow-up information, but know at the end of the day, we love what you're doing. We are here to support and be part of the success of you and your organizations. And we look forward to continuing to working together. So please stay in touch with us. Thank you for all this great work, and watch for some follow-up information to come out soon.